Just two comments picking up on what the minister said. Now, you know, to say that, well, you don't really know what the cost is yet because you still have a bunch of things to figure out. And to that I say, well, how on earth did you come up with the budget numbers that are in the budget if you didn't know what the numbers were? You must have guesstimated at something. So I'm not going to accept that comment from the minister that he can't tell me what any given thing costs because you haven't quite worked it out. You must have put a budget figure in there to come up with the numbers that you've got. The second thing is around that idea of progressive reclamation. I understand what you're doing, and I don't entirely disagree with you, but you are also putting that plan in. You are not going backwards and picking up all of the old sites that are there. You are going forward on that. You're picking up some old sites, but you're not picking up everything. So you're not picking up that liability that's sitting there. So that's my argument around that, is you haven't picked up the entire liability that's out there for the taxpayer if things go wrong. You are more or less going forward from this day. Now I'm going to change gears and talk about climate change. Sorry, that's a bit of a head snapper, but the minister has talked about the declines in the fund, and given that the ministry relies on the money from the Climate Change Emissions Management Fund, and given that the ministry relies on that fund for climate change initiatives, is there plans to increase the $15 levy in order to keep some money in that fund? Because if it just keeps going down because companies are buying offsets, and that's the fund that you're relying on to pay for climate change initiatives, eventually we won't have enough money in there to do that. So what's the consideration about that $15 levy? And I mean, the larger conversation, which we don't have time to have here, is that levy at $15 is a joke, because at this point I think the figure that's bandied about is $90 a ton. And if you really want to see change in the oil and gas, and I'll talk about conventional oil and gas and oil sands are two different things, but if you really want to see change, you've got to get that number up to where it makes more economic sense to the companies to do something different than to just pay the levy as part of doing business. But we don't have time for that conversation. Back to climate change again. If you're not going to increase that levy, then are you considering going from the top 100, I think you've got, with the 100,000 tons of greenhouse gas, and reduce that to the 50,000 tons of emitters being required to pay into that fund? Because that's another way of continuing to get money, and at the same time incenting or disincenting the industry enough to change what they're doing. And that's certainly a part of the environmental policy that I developed, is that we would move that bar down so that it picked up the emitters that are in the 50,000 ton range. I also want to ask what the line 2.2 of the estimates is climate change, and I'm wondering what exactly this is used for. Is that all the tech fund, or is there anything else in there? I haven't heard the minister talk about anything else in any of the other questions others have asked him, so I'm looking for the list of what's covered under that particular line item. Last bit is alternative energy, and I'm wondering what, again, this is a long conversation that we don't have time to have, but why is there so little spent on clean energy and so little focus on clean energy in your business plan? Because if we're going to diversify the economy, if we're going to move forward, all those things we're always told, we need to look at more alternative clean energy, and I'm just not seeing it, so why? And under the priority initiative of 3.2 in the business plan, can the minister talk about, it says that the climate change strategy is going to be updated, and I'm wondering what exactly those changes are going to consist of. And the minister has referred to the updates or the changes in the climate change strategy as well, and I don't know what that means, so if he can let us know. And on page 19 of the fiscal plan, it talks about over $100 million is allocated to the to support various environmentally sustainable resource development plans. And could you provide a breakdown or point me to a website where that where there's a list of who's getting that $100 million and how much each one gets? It turns up on page 19 of your fiscal plan. It's under Energy and Environment on page 19 of the fiscal plan, over $100 million to support various environmentally sustainable resource development plans, including incentives for bioenergy product development, environmental monitoring and reporting, land stewardship and water management. So how are they breaking that out? Well, I'm going to ask the minister to ask the president of the Treasury Board how they came up with that $100 million. And specifically, I'd like to know how much is being allocated to the biofuel initiatives. It seems to me there's a heck of a lot of money going into that sector to the detriment of other alternative energy and conservation sectors. So, and the last thing I have is cumulative effects management. And there was a lot of emphasis on that 2 years ago, nothing in the budget last year, and now it's back in prime time. So what did the government use last year to figure out exactly what the cumulative effects are going to be that he could use this year? Because I've watched that sort of development, and I think there was a lot of emphasis 2 years ago. Last year there was almost no discussion in the budget debates about it, and now it's back, you know, with bells and whistles and neon lights. So what was the thinking? How did that, what's it going to look like to be implemented, and what are the enforcement mechanisms that are going to be included in that? And nope, I bet you there's other. Could you put me back on the list, please, Mr. Speaker? Thank you.